Hello, thank you for joining me. This is our video number 6 in our series, putting a SolidWorks drawing together using our SolidWorks part. And in this video, we're going to put in our dimensions, which can seem to be a formidable task. And one thing you might want to keep in mind too is our video here is, or our part here that we're using for demonstration, it's got a lot more elements to it and a lot more stuff going on with it than the part you're going to be using. So there's going to be a lot more dimensions, but this also gives me an opportunity to show you how to deal with some conflicts you might have with some dimensions. So let's do this. Let's pick the right layer. We don't want to do the sheet notes layer, but let's go to the dimension layer and then go up to not smart dimension. And we could quite literally, like in an AutoCAD drawing, just like dimension everything and put in what we think might be the appropriate dimensions. But remember, as we put our parts together and our assembly together, there are dimensions that are associated with that assembly, and in the AutoCAD, SolidWorks will automatically import those elements into your drawing. So let's take advantage of that. We can do smart dimension, but what we really want to do is go to model items. And these are the typical settings. Our source is going to be the selected component, the entire model, selected feature. If we want to just click on something very specific about that, we can do that. But our selected component or the entire model would be a good selection here. We want to import items into all views. So what we're going to do is we're going to give SolidWorks the opportunity to put the dimensions in the most appropriate place it can. And typically it starts with the detail view, section views, and it moves on to the other views. And what it usually doesn't do is put a dimension on your isometric view. That's usually not an appropriate place to put a view or put a dimension on. The elements you want to choose by default, marked for drawings, are those dimensions that are marked for drawings. Every time you put a dimension into a sketch from the very beginning, those have been marked for drawings. But you can actually, if you can think ahead, be able to exclude certain dimensions from being imported. I also want to do hole wizard locations. I have a couple hole wizard locations up here too that I want to go ahead and include. So it's a hole wizard location and the hole callout. That's a good one to use too. Some of these other ones, not marked for drawing. If you want to bring in some dimensions that you chose not to have marked for the drawing, you could do that. You can do linear and circular pattern counts if you want to do that. And you could do your hole wizard profiles. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do any of those three, so we're going to go ahead and just keep just these three that we selected. You do want to eliminate duplicates. One thing about putting a drawing together is you don't want redundancy. You don't want to have two dimensions on the same object, because not only does it clutter up your drawing, but there's always a chance that if you change one dimension or change the value of the part behind that that's driving that dimension, you may not be able to change, maybe the other dimension may not change, and then you have ambiguity out there, which could cause confusion and perhaps time and money. Annotations, we're going to stick with the defaults. We're not going to include any additional annotations beyond what we're going to be doing with our dimensions. However, it will put in text in here. If you have text that's associated with some of our dimensions, it will import that. Reference geometry, we're not going to put that in here either. And use dimension placement in sketch, yes. And over here, this box over here, include items from hidden features. We're not going to choose that because I don't think it's appropriate here. And our layer, finally, ultimately down here, it's the same layer that's chosen up here for dimension. That's okay. And if you get a green check mark, it puts in our dimensions. Now, you could call it done here, and it probably isn't as attractive as it could be. And what we need to do is a kind of a second step here. SolidWorks doesn't really organize the dimensions for you. You need to go in there and do that in order to make your drawing more attractive. There are a lot of dimensions in our detail C. I'm probably going to back some of these dimensions out and put those elsewhere. There are also a lot of dimensions over here in our right view, and I think probably what I'm going to do with my right view is maybe take some of the dimensions associated with this this arm down here, and maybe put a detail and put those dimensions on it over there. What you want to do ultimately is make sure that your drawing is well organized and the dimensions are easily readable. So to move some of these dimensions around, we're going to take those dimensions and move them around. So that 50.80 square, that goes over there and is 400.005, which doesn't look like it has a reference down here. We might want to move that to a different view. We're going to put that over there and move this off to the side, but this kind of gives you an idea of what you need to do to move your dimensions around. One thing you want to do, and this is a test question as I iterated in class, you do not want your dimension lines intersecting with your object lines. So what you do is you click on a dimension, Drag the endpoint and drag it to the edge. What you want in here ultimately is a gap. You want your dimension to be close to, but not actually touching your object lines. The object lines on your page are going to be the darkest lines on the page, they're going to be the boldest lines, they're going to be the blackest lines. You don't want anything that's going to be intersecting with that. So same thing down here. Now this line down here, this other end, this other dimension line, is actually embedded, it's actually part of that, it's right collinear with the edge of our object line, and that's probably okay to leave that. We can't really leave a gap there. But one thing that's probably apparent to you right now is that we have the wrong units. This is our inches units, or we should be using inches, or standard American English units for this, and it looks like it's in metric. So if this happens to you, make sure you go up to your options button on your pull down menu and change your units. Go to document properties, go to units, and make sure you put in inch pound second. Length, we're going to make sure that's up to 3. Dual dimension units, we're going to talk about that here in a bit because we're going to use that. Make sure you choose millimeters for that, and let's make sure we go down to 2 units after the decimal for the precision on that, and then go to OK. So now we're back to inches. That looks a lot better, that looks a lot better, and all the other dimensions I'm certain look better and conform a little bit better than what we've done and what we had before. So here's a radius dimension. This is going to be the last thing you do for this film. Remember our leader line that we have for that dog leg leader? We want to change that, and that should be about 2 millimeters, or about 8/100ths of an inch in regard to its size. Because when you get a really tight drawing like this, and you have a lot of these leader lines on that, it's nice having it a lot shorter. Typically they are shorter, so let's go ahead and change that. So go to options, document properties, dimensions, and it's right down here for bent leader length. Instead of 1/4 of an inch, you're going to make it 0.08. Let's take a look at that. That looks a lot better. It condenses a lot more. It's about maybe half the size in regard to the area it took up in the sheet than it did before. So that's enough for this film. In the next film we're going to go ahead and organize our dimensions even more, do one more detail call out, and then we should be pretty close to being done.